The Movie Preview Critic. Informing and entertaining your movie world.
We are under attack from an old enemy. Find Professor London.
Was there anyone who wasn't expecting this movie to be made as soon as the DaVinci Code became a bestseller? We can expect all of Dan Brown's books to be made into movies within the next 3 to 5 years, at least the ones that have sold a decent amount of copies. Here, Angels and Demons, in what Tom Hanks, Ron Howard, and Columbia Pictures hope will be a trilogy, especially since a third story centering around Robert Langdon titled The Lost Symbol has just been optioned even before its release to bookshelves. Since 1998, Dan Brown's written 5 books, including The Lost Symbol. 2 of them have been non-Robert Langdon adventures, titled Digital Fortress and Deception Point. More than likely, those will eventually get made, if not on the big screen, then at least as a TV movie of the week. I guess you can't be too mad at H. Wood for making these adaptations. There's no such thing as a guaranteed hit, so H. Wood plays it as safe as possible by making movies based on already established work that has a fan base. And at least here, they're adapting some decent material and interesting story ideas. Just because it's an adaptation doesn't mean it's going to be horrible. In a way, adapting something that was already a hit, in this case a bestseller, is sort of like a screening process. It proves that it has something that people like. That's true for all of Dan Brown's books except The Lost Symbol. It's not even out yet, and H. Wood is gearing up the cameras. What if it bombs? It could, but it probably won't, because it's going to be advertised with blurbs like, from the author of the DaVinci Code and Angels and Demons, or the sequel to the DaVinci Code. Bullshit blurbs like that seem to do the job when motivating us to buy. I do have to give Dan Brown credit. He knows how to keep a story moving fast, and he does have interesting premises and ideas to center these stories around, even though his main method of story inspiration seems to be made up of going to the bookstore and hanging out in the conspiracy aisle for a few hours. Most of his ideas already have non-fiction books based on them, but I guess that's what they call research. Most famously, the DaVinci Code is reportedly closely based on a book called Holy Blood, Holy Grail, written in the late 70s and published in the early 80s. In court, Dan Brown was found innocent of plagiarism, which probably means he obviously read it, but didn't take enough material to be found guilty of it. It's obviously he was inspired by it. He took a non-fiction idea and made it into a very entertaining fiction adventure. So we have to give him credit. It sounds easy, but it isn't. It requires writing skill and imagination. Which brings us to Angels and Demons. Technically, it's a prequel to the DaVinci Code. It was written and set before the events of the DaVinci Code, but it's coming out now because DaVinci Code was and is the biggest seller of this decade behind the Harry Potter books. No one would give a about making this movie if it wasn't for the worldwide success and obsession of the DaVinci Code, which started the whole follow the clues storytelling meme in Hollywood. The biggest ripoff, or we could say inspiration from the DaVinci Code, is National Treasure. I've got nothing against those movies. They're a lot of fun and very entertaining and watchable, except that I don't give a about the characters. At least in something like Indiana Jones, the first major popular modern-day lost treasure hunter story that we responded to, I as an audience member connect to Indy as a person as much as I did the interesting ideas that were explored in the films. With National Treasure and the DaVinci Code, I felt like I was watching a version of Lara Croft without the big to distract me. I remember watching the DaVinci Code opening weekend in 2006, 6 o'clock show, downtown Chicago, packed theater. For 2 hours, there was silence. It's not that the movie wasn't enjoyable, it's that it was impersonal. It was cold and distant. It focused more on the ideas than the impact of those ideas on the characters, and in turn, us the audience. The DaVinci Code was a story about a secret that could destroy the official history of a 2,000-year-old religion and all of the believers involved with it. And the emotional impact was missing. At minimum, if this was an Indiana Jones adventure, we would at least have a little laughter. Here there was silence, nothing. Just a sterile, scientific connect-the-dots exercise. It was like doing a Sunday crossword puzzle, a test of the intellect, not a journey of faith. When the movie ended, everyone got up and left. No clapping, no cheers, no boos, no jeers, nothing. No one felt one way or the other. How was that possible? A movie whose idea centered around Jesus getting married and having children didn't affect the audience one way or the other. The major failure here was that the main character was uninvolved with the subject matter. There was no theme, no personal journey for Robert Langdon. And even though Indy or Tomb Raider or William Gates don't change their characters as they're hunting for their treasures, it just seems like that somebody in this movie should have been happy or sad at discovering the secret. In the movies where there's a hero character like James Bond or Superman, the main characters don't change. In that case, someone else in the movie should. To use another Tom Hanks movie as an example, in Forrest Gump, Tom Hanks is a character that stays the same throughout the whole movie. He is who he is. So it's the other characters that go through the journeys, especially Lieutenant Dan and Jenny. They're different at the end than they were at the beginning. That's what the DaVinci Code missed. And looking at it all, it's not Ron Howard's fault. As a director, he's made some hardcore emotional dramas. He won the Oscar for Beautiful Mind, and he made a great drama comedy about all aspects of life with Cocoon. The fault here is in the writing, the source material. These books are almost screenplays in novel format. They don't take advantage of all the tools and freedom within the novel medium. There's no descriptive language, not a lot of adjective artistry. There's just a strong story skeleton, which is skillfully crafted, but the emotional impact seems to be stripped away. It's like a cyborg, a human-looking body on the outside, but cold, metallic structure on the inside, waiting for its rights to be purchased by H-Wood so it can just be taken from the page and put into a screenplay. Another way to look at this problem is if you take the main character out of a movie in general, would everything happen the same way? Hopefully the answer is no, because each person has their own unique way of interacting with people and reacting to conflict and in turn solving problems. Imagine the DaVinci Code if the character of Forrest Gump was in there. It's played by the same actor. If you switch personality and now Forrest Gump is searching for these treasures, it becomes ridiculous. It's a comedy. Mama always said, watch out for the Illuminati. Or if you take the character of John McClane from Die Hard, it's also going to change the movie. We're not necessarily looking at the star and saying, what if Bruce Willis starred in that or Sir Laurence Olivier, but the personality of the character. That determines how the story unfolds. Robert Langdon is a boring character. Yeah, he can see patterns and decipher symbols, but so can a computer. If he's not going to have an inner journey, then who else in the movie is? Because we, the audience, crave that in movies. Without that here, we might as well be watching a History Channel documentary with a bigger budget and a better score. Angels and Demons seems to have the same structure as the DaVinci Code, with different details. So what can we expect? Based on the preview, there was something like this. A mystic cultish murder occurs. The only man to call is Robert Langdon. He goes to a lab, sees some technology, and yet another hot brunette tags along. He follows clues that lead him down a sewer, to an ancient tomb, a campfire, a skull-decorated tomb. He goes to see Silence of the Lambs on IMAX. Stuff goes boom, he looks at statues, takes a swim, everyone screams, and maybe a bomb goes off in the end, but the Vatican is not destroyed. The mystery solved, and a new pope is elected. Let's issue some warning signs. Number 2, the preview reveals no characters. Number 7, the preview whores out from the director of. Number 26, the actors aren't mentioned during the preview. Number 67, the preview uses the quality and success of another movie to give credibility to this one. Number 68, the preview overuses cliché action-adventure quotes.
We are under attack from an old enemy. Find Professor Langdon.
That's Illuminati. They've come for their revenge. Fellas, you called me. This is the first sign.
May God forgive you for what you've done.
Hey! This is the first marker.
Open the doors and tell the world the truth.
It has to be here!
Number 69. The score is forcing you into an emotional state. In this case, action movie excitement. I have to admit, I like this premise, the overall idea of the story. I like the idea of the main character Robert Langdon, and I like the actors, and I like the writer and director. This is such a strong collection of creativity, inspiration, and talent, but more than likely, it'll end up being forgettable. It'll be a fun ride for 2 hours, we'll learn something about the history of Rome, learn some possibly true, probably fiction secrets about religion and secret societies, which we should always double check, because remember, just because it's in a movie and it looks and sounds good doesn't mean it's true. and there will be some nice twists and turns to keep us surprised and interested throughout. But we won't feel a thing. I know I probably mention this in every review, but the reason is because that it's humans writing it, directing, and starring in a movie, and watching it, so why not touch on those levels? And this movie deals with religions for, well, God's sake. And the Catholic Church has kind of created a media stir around this movie, openly opposing it. So it's sensitive subject matter, and there are billions of Catholics on the planet. How can this not touch a nerve in audience members one way or the other? You can say it's just entertainment, a way to pass the free time that we have. But even at that, if we're watching humans on screen, they should seem like real people. And whether we admit it or not, if we go see a story for entertainment, there's also some part of us that's looking for story to help guide our lives. Day by day, year by year, here on Earth or wherever we go after this, don't we base our actions on story? Story as advice, story as lessons learned, as mistakes made? It's all action that we've lived, and when we look back on it, it's story informing us how we should act in the future. And isn't Christianity based on the story of a Savior who was born, suffered, and died, then rose again to redeem humanity? Doesn't that story affect people on a daily basis? And this movie is a story dealing with that story. Doesn't that deserve a complete immersion into the different areas of humanity? Or again, are we going to tell ourselves, don't expect too much, it's just mindless entertainment? Well, that's just a form of self-fulfilling prophecy. We get what we want, because our minds end up getting less. If anyone doubts the power of story, just ask yourself about your religious beliefs, whether it's Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, or whatever. They're based on a collection of stories, on human action that's occurred, on wisdom that's come from that, and then in turn this story catalog is passed down from generation to generation. Here we have story as entertainment, but that doesn't mean it has to be soulless, especially when it's dealing with subject matter that is so obsessed with exactly that subject. I for once agree with the blurbs that they're using to advertise it. It will be better than the DaVinci Code in terms of its execution, maybe not the overall idea. It looks like it has a little more intensity, and it seems like the characters will be a little more emotionally invested, especially those attached to the church. But then again, the same actor, director, screenwriter, and novelist are involved in this project, so chances are this movie will be like going to church, sitting through the Mass, but not having the communion offering. Not having that connection. Let's hope, like a medieval church, it doesn't get caught up in the pomp and circumstance of the effects, twists, and gimmicks. The movies that we remember are the ones that affect us emotionally, which means we connect with the characters. After all, if you believe in religion, you don't go to Mass or temple or on pilgrimage because of the buildings, costumes, or decor. We go to get in touch with that sacred part of ourselves. We're sort of going to see cinematic avatars of ourselves, experiencing a life, experiencing a story that we won't necessarily be able to in this reality. But because it's a person on the screen and it's a person watching it, there's hopefully some kind of a connection. And in that connection, some sort of wisdom can be attained. Angels and Demons deals with the greatest story ever told. Let's hope it doesn't turn out to be another story barely felt. The movie preview critic rates Angels and Demons worthy of big screen viewing. See it as a matinee, because it's not that different from the DaVinci Code. It's definitely being made for the easy payday. The studio's hoping it'll be a trilogy. It has forgettable characters, it'll have twist after twist, and we'll probably check it out because we like the actor, director, we're mystery lovers, thriller lovers, and we like movies that have a religious aspect to them. Now let's find Angels and Demons' place in movie history! It'll be better than the DaVinci Code and Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but will most likely place behind the Lara Croft movies, the first 3 indie films, and the National Treasure movies. In terms of the box office this weekend, the DaVinci Code made $77 million opening weekend back in 2006. But that's because it was a bestseller, and in 2006, it still had a lot of that pop culture awareness. Angels and Demons is trying to fuel itself into popularity by using Da Vinci's reputation. Combine that with Tom Hanks as being the star, and this should make about $50 million, because it's not the Da Vinci Code. If it was titled The Da Vinci Code 2 Angels and Demons, it would probably make about 70 or 80. Just like National Treasure 2 made $65 million after the first movie had made $35 because it kept the same name. Like it or not, we the audience have short-term memories. So that's it. Thanks for hanging out. Until next time, choose your movies wisely because H-Wood gives us more of what we pay for. And as always,
long live good movies!